Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I would like to let all of our attendees know that tonight we have interpretation available in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Grace, could you get to the next slide? Carolina, please feel free to make the announcement in Spanish.
Buenas noches a todos, gracias por estar aquí. Ya vamos a empezar con nuestra reunión de esta tarde. Tenemos interpretación de inglés al español y igual tenemos interpretación en portugués.
Humberto, please go ahead.
Boa noite a todos os participantes. É um prazer tê-los aqui conosco para esse evento. A interpretação estará disponível do inglês para o português, assim como do inglês para o espanhol.
If you are dialed into tonight's meeting and would like to listen in English, no further action is needed. Can I advance the slide? If you are joining from a computer, to join interpretation, please click on the globe symbol in the bottom right corner of your screen, then select the option for the language that you speak. If you are joining from a smartphone, you will click on the three dots in the bottom right corner of your phone screen, then select the option with the globe symbol, select your language, and press done in the top right corner.
Tenemos las indicaciones para la interpretación. Si usted está uniéndose a esta reunión desde una computadora, haga clic en el globo que está en la parte de la esquina derecha de su pantalla y seleccione la opción para el lenguaje que usted habla. Están las indicaciones en la pantalla, si puede verlas. Ahora, si usted está uniéndose a esta reunión con su teléfono inteligente, haga clic en los tres puntos ubicados en la esquina derecha, abajo de su pantalla. Seleccione la opción con el símbolo del globo y seleccione su lenguaje. Presione Done arriba en la esquina derecha de su pantalla.
Então, senhores que estiverem participando do evento através de uma computadora, vocês têm que clicar no símbolo do globo no canto inferior direito da sua tela e depois selecionar a opção para o idioma que você fala. Se você está participando do evento através de um celular, um smartphone, vocês, por favor, clique nos três pontinhos no canto inferior direito da sua tela, selecione a opção que tem o símbolo do globo e depois selecione seu idioma. E, finalmente, aperte no Done, que está no canto superior direito da tela.
Interpretation will now begin. We are ready to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith, and thank you, interpreters. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our all-ward City Hall community meeting. Tonight is the final in our fall series. Over the last month, meetings were held in each of Somerville's wards where the mayor and city staff touched on various topics as they provided ward-specific updates related to their ongoing work. They'll be doing so again tonight, this time with a more citywide scope. After all presentations, we will be opening up to take questions. We have city staff with us tonight, in addition to presenters, who are ready to answer questions as they come up. Those departments and divisions include Economic Development, Constituent Services, Somerville's Council on Aging, and our Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. If you'd like to ask a question, we ask that you please use the raise hand function. Grace, we can go ahead to the next slide. I can go one more. Tonight's meeting will close at 8:30 p.m. If we don't get to your question tonight, or if you prefer email for follow-up questions and for giving feedback, please email cm@somervillema.gov and we'll direct your comment to the appropriate department. Tonight's meeting is being recorded, as well as the ones that were in person were. All meeting recordings will be on the City TV's YouTube channel in the coming days, as well as on the city website at somervillema.gov/community readings or community meetings, excuse me. So now for the raise hand function, you can do this from your Windows or Mac computer by going to the participants area and selecting reactions from that navigation bar. You can click the raise hand icon. Shortcut to do this is using the Alt-Y and Option Y keys. And next slide, please. Thank you. If you're tuning in tonight through an Android or iPhone, you can do this by going to the bottom right corner, the ellipses there, and then once you select that, there's a raise hand option. If you are dialing in tonight to join us, please dial *9, which will raise your hand, and to lower your hand, just repeat *9. With that, before we begin main presentations, I do have a series of quick city updates for you. First is a reminder that Somerville's municipal election is next week on Tuesday, November 7th. Early voting is underway at City Hall and can be done tonight until 7:30 and tomorrow, November 3rd, from 8:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. Blue ballot boxes have been placed around the city and are checked regularly. We welcome you to utilize these for items such as vote by mail ballots. All election information, whether it be your polling place or voting times, can be found at somervillema.gov/elections. For the 2023-2024 school year, Somerville Recreation is offering a variety of program and activity options at various locations throughout the year. Teens can access these programs through the General Teen Center membership, as well as the Powder House Teen Center membership. Both are free and geared towards children ages 12 to 18. And then we wanted to remind you that the Teen Room at the Somerville Public Library Central Branch is also open with regular programming. The Somerville Council on Aging has launched a senior community survey to identify resident needs to guide improvements to the programs and services provided. You can take the survey online, over the phone, or download and submit a paper copy in person. The survey is open until tomorrow, so if you have not completed that yet, we encourage you to do so. As winter approaches, our Public Works Department has provided this slide, which is a breakdown of snow removal responsibilities. We did want to highlight a reminder that property owners are responsible for snow removal on sidewalks and curb ramps adjacent to their property. Somerville's Health and Human Services Department is hosting several flu vaccine clinics in October and November. You can register for any of those at somervillema.gov/vaccines. A quick update on housing. The last 2 years have been active in terms of affordable housing production. This slide provides a basic breakdown on housing units created in the last 2 years. If you'd like to get on the Housing Division's listserv for new housing opportunities, you can sign up by going to the city website and searching for inclusionary housing. These next 2 slides summarize the efforts of the city and Somerville Arts Council, who are leading a cultural capacity planning effort with the goal to help arts and culture thrive in Somerville. Over 30 conversations were held in 2023, which were led by cultural ambassadors within the community. This plan is about examining what the community claims are issues, assets, and areas for opportunity, and how to distill them into a plan of action. A cultural vision forum will be held on November 13th, and you can keep up with the plan by visiting their Summer Voice page. These next two slides are updates from our engineering division and construction team. First, we have an upcoming combined sewer planning meeting on November 15th. This is being done in partnership with the City of Cambridge and the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. You can join to learn about tools to minimize sewer overflows and improve water quality. On that note, I also did want to highlight the city's Adopt a Drain program. Through this, residents and business owners can volunteer to care for a local drain of their choice and check on it before and after heavy rain, wind, or snow. One perk of this is you get to name any drain that you choose to adopt. The more creativity, the better. You can learn more about this by visiting somervillema.gov/stormwater. And then on the second slide, you'll find links to our ADA transition plan, as well as the construction updates page. Both are great resources for providing feedback and staying up to date with all things construction. And finally, we included the slide. There's for ways you can keep up with all things Somerville. One of those ways being subscribing to our weekly newsletter. You can do this by using the QR code or by visiting somervillema.gov/subscribe. On this webpage, you'll find a list of other departments that have their own newsletters. We welcome you to subscribe to any that interest you. And on the right, you'll find our main social media channels. That concludes our quick update segment. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to welcome Mayor Ballantyne to begin her presentation.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here with everyone. My piece that I'm going to be talking about is our city, our climate, our time to act. Climate change is a local issue with local impacts and local solutions. We all lead full lives. I acknowledge that climate change may not be what every family talks about at the dinner table. That's why I'm so glad that you're with us this evening, because we're going to talk about how the city is working to address the impacts of climate change that affect the daily lives of Somerville residents, businesses, and property owners. To start, I have two questions for you. Please use the raise hand function to answer these questions. So the first one is, are you familiar with climate change? The second question is, would you raise your hand if you're concerned about how climate change is impacting or will impact our community? Thank you. I'll share that I would have raised my hands for both those questions. As a mother of two daughters, I'm very worried about what kind of planet we will all be leaving behind for our children. As mayor, and before that, as a city councilor, I have long felt a deep sense of duty to strive to address both the climate impacts we're seeing right now, as well as those projected to come. Climate change is complex and a broad challenge. So I'm heartened to see that our residents are also looking for solutions. So after a little bit of grounding on the issues, it's that determination to act that I'm going to focus on tonight. Just to quickly give a background, climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. Such shifts can be natural, due to events like large volcanic eruptions. But since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. Burning fossil fuels generate greenhouse gas emissions. These gases collect in the atmosphere and act like a blanket and wrap around the earth, trapping in the sun's heat and raising the temperature. Warmer temperatures contribute to extreme weather. And the important thing to know is that we can still limit the impacts of climate change if we act now. We are already seeing the climate impacts around the world and at home. Flooded crops, even right here in Massachusetts, as well as wildfires, smoke coming from Canada, intensifying storms and extreme heat have been filling the headlines in the last 6 months. One example of what a local impact could mean to us, as our 2022 hazard mitigation study projects, that if Somerville were to receive the direct hit from a Category 2 hurricane, we could see more than $125 million in damages and lost productivity. We could also see more than 500 households displaced. Far from the headlines, we are also seeing the impacts to the work of the city. With increased frequency in storms, our water and sewer department has had to significantly ramp up hours dedicated to preventing and addressing flooding. They've had to be sure that before every forecast storm that we clear more than 3,600 catch basins across the city to keep water drainage working. They've also had to increase overtime to handle the flood calls during and after storms. Our inspectional services department is now responding to more basement floods, including basement level apartments, more mold issues leading to air quality issues, more freezing pipes that can do thousands of dollars of damage, increased rodent activity exacerbated by warmer winters, and monitoring for additional stresses on building materials from temperature swings. Over in the Department of Public Works, after decades, we've had to change our dress code to address extreme heat and cold for our outdoor crews. They now wear shorts when it's safe to do so, are supplied with quality clothing for winter, wicking shirts and cooling towels in the summer, and if and when needed, we alter the timing of work assignments. They are now monitoring for and addressing more extreme weather-induced failures like cracked windows, flooding, and storm damaged trees. Likewise, our communications and outreach staff have had to increase messaging on preparedness and warnings for a range of issues triggered by extreme heat, cold, storms, and more. As an administration, we've been monitoring these impacts and dedicating funding and staffing where needed to meet these new demands. We've created new positions for rodent control, inspectional services, DPW, and emergency communications as a direct result. And again, this is just a sampling. There are impacts across operations citywide. In short, we're not sitting back and waiting for climate impacts to surprise us. So let me zoom into what we're doing in the bigger picture about climate change. Our Climate Forward Plan is our roadmap for climate action efforts. The plan has 3 key areas of action. It's designed to, 1, reduce Somerville's contribution to climate change and work towards making Somerville carbon net negative by 2050. It's also designed to prepare Somerville for unavoidable impacts of climate change. And it centers equity with all its efforts. What that means is that we are always striving to fairly distribute the opportunities created by climate action, such as new jobs or energy saving programs and educational outreach. So, as we are guided by these 3 key principles of actions, we're focused on 5 areas to target our efforts. 1, buildings; 2, transportation and mobility; 3, the environment; 4, community; and 5, leadership. So what does our work look like so far? We've been measuring our carbon emissions, for one thing. Approximately 2/3 of Somerville's greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. About 1/3 comes from transportation, and about 4% comes from waste. To reach our goal of being carbon net negative by 2050, we are striving to eliminate nearly all our emissions. That's a tall order, but we have a path. To start, we're working to reduce building emissions in a number of ways. In our own buildings, we've steadily been reducing energy use and shifting to renewable energy sources. For example, about 3-4 weeks ago, I signed a contract to get 30% of municipal electricity from a local Massachusetts solar farm. For private homes and properties, we've been aiding the shift to renewables in a number of ways. Our staff offers programs to assist both renters and homeowners with accessing energy-saving programs. Somerville's Community Choice Electricity Program offers competitively priced renewable energy options, and you can sign up anytime. And there are more than 760 net zero passive house units in construction in Somerville, with more than 161 of those units slated to be affordable. We've built requirements and incentives into our zoning for energy efficient construction. We have 50 certifiable LEED Gold and Platinum buildings in development. This year, we were one of the first 4 communities in Massachusetts to adopt and enact the Specialized Energy Code. And Somerville was the first in New England to establish a green score. This is part of the zoning ordinance, incentivizes the inclusion of elements that reduce urban heat island, manage stormwater, and filter pollutants. The city is also working to make it easy for our community to choose low carbon ways to travel. The idea isn't to tell people what to do, but rather to make the green choice the easy choice. Our efforts have focused on installing priority bus lanes to make bus travel safer and more reliable, extending the Green Line, expanding our bicycle network, making pedestrian safety improvements, whether that's streetscape redesign, better crosswalk striping, or establishing safe routes to school. Pursuing Vision Zero, which is an effort to prevent all serious injuries and deaths on our roadways. And we're also studying how best to expand our electric vehicle charging network. As we work to prepare for climate impacts, addressing our environment and infrastructure is also key. We are tackling multiple water and sewer projects to reduce flooding, planting trees, removing sick trees. We're expanding green space to help keep our neighborhoods cooler and provide more permeable surface areas to absorb rainwater and reduce flooding. As we also see climate impacts on our smallest creatures and plants, we are also working to preserve and develop local habitats and plant native species to support biodiversity. That includes creating pollinator gardens for insects, including butterflies and bees, like the one at Conway Park shown in this slide. We've also established a pollinator action plan and advisory committee to guide these efforts. With the council, we've also passed a native species plant ordinance, and we've increased the number of native species in our urban canopy and native species in public spaces. We're also integrating green infrastructure into our streetscapes and parks. Additions like rain gardens and bioswales can catch stormwater to reduce flooding. Waste also contributes to greenhouse gases by producing methane as it decays in landfill. Last year, the city completed the community's first zero waste plan and set a goal to reduce waste at least by 90% by 2050. And finally, the Mystic River presents coastal flooding risk for us, and I'll share more about that in a moment. For citywide flooding risks, we have numerous aggressive efforts underway to reduce impacts, and they focus in 3 key areas: targeted projects to improve drainage in specific areas or neighborhoods, such as Cedar Street and the community path, or under the Washington Street Bridge. New drainage projects include the new Mystic outfall to reduce flooding in Ward 4. The Morrison Ave tank will reduce flooding in Davis Square and on Morrison Ave. We're also undertaking major multi-million-dollar sewer system upgrades. This includes Somerville Ave drainage improvement project, the Poplar Street pump project that will serve roughly 2/3 of the city, and citywide sewer separation, which both improves water quality and reduces flooding. This map shows Somerville's areas most like to flood in a 100-year storm. They include Assembly Square, Union Square, and Davis Square. We are not just sitting back and waiting to be surprised by this. We're currently hiring for our first sustainability and resiliency planner to expand our work to tackle these projects and these challenges. We're also working with regional coalition to address coastal flooding risks. We are one of the founding members of the Resilient Mystic Collaborative, organized by the Mystic River Watershed Association. With help from our federal and state delegation, this collaborative effort has and continues to raise millions of dollars for 3 critical projects that will protect more than 100,000 residents and more than $60 billion in property. The projects are shoring up and raising the Amelia Earhart Dam, which is also shown on this slide. The green space to the right is Draw 7 Park. One of the 3 projects is renovating Draw 7 Park with stormwater management features to help prevent storm surge from flanking the dam. And as a bonus, it also includes expansion of a multi-use path. And finally, the 3rd project will create coastal protection for Island End River, just east of us on the border between Everett and Chelsea. For the region, this area is where the bulk of our produce is processed at the New England Produce Center. The industrial district generates an estimated $7 billion annually in economic activity, and it's already floods during coastal storms and king tides. With more than 15,000 low-income residents who live within this area, this project will help protect these homes and this vital food center from coastal storms and sea level rise. Our climate forward efforts also focus on community. They range from offering programs and outreach that support a healthy and resilient community, such as warming and cooling centers, resiliency program like Keep Cool and Flood Ready that offer educational outreach. The creation this year of a new emergency shelter displacement fund to assist residents with nowhere else to go if they need emergency housing due to issues such as fire, flooding, and burst water pipes. And finally, we're working to grow a culture of climate action, whether that's through the Climate Ambassador Program, the Mayor's Youth Summer Job Program, or engaging residents like you in shaping our climate forward. Really, everything we are doing around climate change, though, is focused on the health and resiliency of our community. Which brings me to leadership goals of our Climate Forward plan. We are focused on three main areas of leadership. First is city government leading by example. When we shift our vehicles to electric, put solar arrays on top of our schools, and cut our energy use, that's the city walking the walk. The second is regional collaboration. Like any joint efforts to address coastal flooding or work I and our staff do through a range of organizations like the Metro Mayors Coalition. And of course, leadership includes advocating for carbon neutrality and climate action at the state level. Somerville has received the highest rating for our climate leadership and transparent reporting from CDP. This is a global nonprofit that sets standards for environmental reporting. Whenever and wherever we can weigh in, we do. And we are fortunate that our federal and our state delegation do the same. So what is next? We need your help. Please fill out this survey. Ask your neighbors to fill out the survey. Share it with any friends or family, and follow us online. But we need to hear your voice, hear your opinions, and I thank you for this evening.
Thank you,
Good
Mayor
evening.
Ballantyne. Oh, sorry, Megan. Thank you, Mayor Ballantyne. Before we have Megan present, I did just want to acknowledge that Councilor at Large Wilson is here, as well as Ward 4 Councilor Klingon. So I believe if we change the view, they can give a wave. Okay.
Oh, hello, everybody. I wasn't expecting to go on camera. This is a great opportunity for all of us to come together virtually and listen to what's going on in the city. So any questions or anything for me, just email me or call. And thanks.
Thank you, Councilor.
Hey everyone, Jake Wilson, City Councilor at Large. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially city staff. This is my 8th one of these this fall, but you all have done more of those, believe it or not. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for showing up, and I'm here to listen. Thanks.
Thank you, councilors. And with that, I will turn it over to Megan with participatory budgeting updates.
Thank you, Victoria. Good evening, folks. My name is Megan Huckenpaller. I am the budget analyst working in the city's finance office and here to talk to you about participatory budgeting, which is an initiative I've been working on for over a year now. And hopefully you all recognize, if not that term, the visual of this mailer, which went out to all of our residences' mailboxes last month to encourage our voting. To give a refresher on this process and where it began, I want to walk through the 5 stages and remind folks of where we've come. We approved the funding last June as part of the budget process. And then we had a residential group with 11 volunteers design it, give input, and focus on 2 values that they kept coming back to of designing it with transparency and inclusivity in mind. Next up, we had our community input of how they want to see this $1 million spent. We solicited 966 ideas, which was an amazing turnout. We had a 2-month window open where folks could go online, and we had over 44% of ideas related to our streets and sidewalks, with 99 specifically about road safety. Our target in this first year was initially 100 ideas submitted. So this was an awesome turnout to see the creativity of the residents of Somerville. The next stage in the process involved this summer. We had 40 residents who served as volunteers and combed through the 966 ideas submitted to whittle it down to the best 20 ideas, which were on the ballot last month. They talked with city staff in these meetings. They reviewed existing city plans such as Climate Forward and Vision Zero. They graded the projects according to the project feasibility, which was meaning a project could be implemented on city-owned property, cost less than $1 million, and be a one-time expense. They graded them on feasibility, need, and impact. They condensed duplicated ideas and arrived with the 20 that residents voted on. The voting methodology was online. It was done via ranked choice, where residents could pick their top 5 projects. And then they were ranked with people's first choice projects being given 5 points, your second choice 4 points, and so on. And we announced earlier in the month, and I'm excited to share how the $1 million was allocated. So next slide, please. The winning projects that we will be funding in order of most popular, we're supporting direct community food access for our neighbors who are food insecure. We have the bike lane acceleration, so funding 1 mile of a quick build as part of our bicycle network plan. The third project is bus stop improvements, providing things such as real-time signage, shelters, infrastructure, curbing. The fourth project, a lot of folks wanted to make sure we did something about rats, and the best project was, you can see a sample of it on the left, faster big belly trash can adoption throughout the city. And the final project we were able to fund with $1 million was Keep It Cool in the Ville. A fun name, but the description is about providing shade structures. So coverings, providing similar benefits to trees in public squares and parks. These are the projects that we'll be funding. You can learn more on somervillema.gov/PB if you wanted to see how all 20 ideas ranked and to learn more about updates as they become available on the implementation of these 5 projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And next up, we have a mobility update from Director Brad Rawson.
Thank you, Victoria. Next slide, please. My name is, Nick, do you mind staying on the first one for a moment? Hi, everyone. My name is Brad Rawson. I'm a Somerville resident and a proud parent in the excellent Somerville Public Schools. I serve our city as Director of Mobility in Mayor Ballantyne's Community Development Office. This is a 75-person office that includes 30 affordable housing specialists, 10 small business and workforce development specialists, 8 arborists, landscape architects, and parks project managers. I'm part of the 8-person mobility division. We are responsible for transportation planning, street safety, public transit coordination, and much more. Next slide, please. Community engagement is a big part of our work. We use a variety of techniques to seek input and feedback from our residents. This slide lists examples of how we hear from our neighbors. It is no surprise that street safety is an overwhelming priority in Somerville. Our residents constantly tell us that there are too many cars moving too fast through our city. People tell us that they feel unsafe and that they expect city government to improve things. Next slide, please. The most important action that we can take is to build traffic calming infrastructure. This slide shows the number of traffic calming installations Somerville has added each year. Examples include raised crosswalks, curb extensions, and speed humps. In 2017, we only built 5 of these life-saving installations. That's not good enough. Now we build roughly 50 per year. We are really proud of this progress because it is what our residents tell us they want. Next slide, please. How do we know whether our approach is working? We measure speeding behavior on Somerville streets every year. We collect speed data before and after we build traffic calming infrastructure. This slide shows a few examples of these projects and how we measure effectiveness. In each case, the traffic calming worked. Speeding behavior has been decreased dramatically. This is important because speeding increases both the number of crashes and the severity of those crashes. Next slide, please. Another key indicator of success is the number and severity of crashes. Our biggest concern is crashes that involve people walking, people using mobility assistance devices like wheelchairs, or people biking. Crashes involving these vulnerable road users are much more dangerous than crashes involving motor vehicles only. This slide shows the number of pedestrian crashes reported in Somerville in recent years. The general trend line is downward, and this is a good thing. This gives us confidence that the city's approach is working, but we still have so much work to do. Photos on this slide show raised crosswalks the city constructed on busy streets adjacent to parks and schools. We're proud of this progress, but we're humble about the fact that there are so many more risky intersections that urgently need safety upgrades. Next slide, please. So to close, we'd like you to join in that life-saving work. This slide shows an example of how to learn more about street safety in Somerville. The city publishes an online map of planned traffic calming sites to keep our residents informed. We also publish a monthly newsletter to connect you to engagement opportunities, including project websites, community meetings, and surveys. Links are provided on these slides, and you can always email transportation@somervillema.gov to reach our great city staff. We appreciate your attention this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next up, we'll hear from Colin with our Inspectional Services Department.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight. My name is Colin Ziegler. I'm the Environmental Health Manager for the City of Somerville, and I'm representing Inspectional Services tonight. And I just want to talk rats with you. So let's get started. So I wanted to provide a quick update on the Smart Pilot Program Phase 2. Currently, we are nearing 600 captures. The map shown here actually hasn't been updated recently. We just received updated numbers. 600 captures this year, a slight reduction or significant reduction in many locations, but an increase in others, which we're attributing to a lot of the work that we've been doing on the ground with education and enforcement work. So it's positive to see this. We see the boxes also collecting the data, but doing the captures, and it's helping to inform a lot of the work that we're doing in ISD and areas that we're targeting, specific environments that we'll continue to focus on. So I'm looking forward to Phase 3 in 2024, and we'll keep everyone updated. But the biggest thing that we're working on right now is updating the city's integrated pest management plan. For those of you not familiar with this term, essentially what you're doing is you're breaking down the various vectors and environments that rodents are active in and that humans contribute to. So you look at things at a commercial level, You look at things at residential and public level as well. And then you break down the ways that the city responds through education, enforcement, and then ultimately abatement. We're very excited to update from the 2019 IPM. It includes some great new policies, very exciting new programs that we're going to be rolling out, and we're looking forward to sharing that with you later this fall. Also, we've updated our web resource for us. We noticed on our current website, while there is a lot of great information about best practices and rodent behavior, it was a little full. So we've condensed it down into these 3 individual columns, each with 5 helpful tips on steps that you can take on your own property and share with your neighbors on steps that they can take on their property to help collectively act to reduce rodent activity in our neighborhoods. I highly recommend everyone check out the Rodents Away website. The URL is located right here. Share it, engage with us, give us a call if you have any more questions or comments. But thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Next up, I'd like to invite Captain Jim Donovan with an update from the police department.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Donovan, captain here at the police department. My responsibilities in the police department are I'm in charge of patrol operations, which is the men and women you see in uniform every day. I also act as a liaison at Tufts University, and I interact with most of your city councilors addressing constituent needs throughout the year. Next slide, please. The first slide we're going to address is just a snapshot of where we are regarding crime within your city. Citywide, Part 1 crimes increased 8% over a year. Those increases are specifically to do with all property crimes. We had an increase of 38 burglaries, which are house breaks, 47 motor vehicle theft and theft of parts, and increase of 48 break-ins to motor vehicles. We did see decreases, thankfully, in violent crimes such as robbery, went down by 11, and larcenies went down by 28, which is a significant number. I will say across the city, the increases varied significantly in different wards. Towards the east end of the city, wards 1 and ward 4, we did see lower numbers, and towards the west end of the city, wards 6 and 7, we did see more increases, again, due to motor vehicle theft and theft of motor vehicle parts. What do we do in situations like this when we do see these increases? Well, it's my responsibility to deploy our cars where our crime is. We work with our crime analysis unit, and we move our vehicles, our area cars, where we see the crime based on patterns, hotspots, repeat incidents, and feedback from the community as well. We hope to increase community awareness with crime prevention methods. I'll touch on that in a little while with another slide. We do prioritize victim identification in violent crimes. For those of you that are aware, I'm sure many of you are aware, we had a significant shooting this year on Winter Hill, where in excess of 25 rounds were fired on Broadway in the late evening. Our detective unit and investigators did an incredible job identifying the perpetrators of that crime, recovered 3 firearms during the investigation. 1 person's already been charged, and 2 people have been identified and are in the process of being indicted. Next slide, please. One of the things we did this year to engage with the community and engage with our youth in the city is we initiated the Junior Police Academy. We did have this academy in the past. It was very successful. We stopped doing it during COVID, obviously. And we, under Chief Femino's leadership, we reinitiated the Police Academy in 2023. It was extremely successful. We partnered with the Recreations and Parks Department. I held the Junior Police Academy August 7th to the 11th. And we had 22 juveniles or kids who participated in the Police Academy. This was not a regimented police academy like my officers go through, although there was a certain regiment to it to let them know that this is how the police academies really work. But what they did was they formed a team. They came together. We had 22 children who came together. Most didn't know each other. And at the end of that week, they were all friends. They were teammates. Some of the things they did, we had a lot of exercises. They had a ton of fun. They visited the police academy, as you can see from the pictures and the slides. They met our canines. They learned how to do CPR and first aid. They learned some criminal law and criminal procedure, like we learned in the police academies. And they get an opportunity to tour the police station and meet with Chief Femino in the right-hand corner there. That's the desk we sit at every day, once a week rather, and do our staff meetings. So they participated in their own little staff meeting with the Chief of Police. We do plan on doing this next year. It was so successful, we're actually looking at doing 2 weeks. So for anyone listening in on Zoom today, you do have children who would like to participate, please contact the Recreation Department in the spring. The classes do fill up really, really quick. But again, we'll hopefully do it for 2 weeks next year. 2 different classes for 2 weeks. Next slide, please. Crime prevention. We don't operate in a bubble. We need the help of the community. We don't have a crystal ball. We need feedback from the community. And we also ask the community to help us prevent crime. A lot of things we talk about is do not leave keys or key fobs inside your vehicle or leave your vehicle running unattended. Many of the new cars nowadays, you don't even put the key in the ignition. You only need to put the key in your pocket. Some people put the key in the vehicle itself in the armrest and leave it there. Heavily advised, do not do that. Again, leaving your vehicle running. I know winter's coming. We do takeout. We have Uber Eats and other delivery drivers very often leave their cars running. We see a significant amount of stolen vehicles and vehicles that were either left running or the keys were left in them. There are additional security measures you could take. There is the Apple AirPod tag that some people have purchased for protecting their property, and people are actually using it in their vehicles now. Steering lock columns, believe it or not, they are something that was used in the past. They're making a comeback now in some vehicles, and as you can see, Kia and Hyundai vehicles have been very susceptible to theft. There is a TikTok trend out there, unfortunately, about stealing Kia and Hyundai motor vehicles. There is a software update, as you can see on this slide. You can contact Kia. There's a toll-free number there, as well as a toll-free number for Hyundai about getting the software update for those vehicles. And you can find those on the internet. Next slide, please. Crime prevention regarding burglaries, which is house breaks. Astonishingly, in the past 2 months, 70% of our residential breaks required no force. What does that mean? It means that those homes were either unlocked or had open windows. Especially with the coming winter, we ask that you keep your homes locked, keep your windows closed. In the summertime, when people have window air conditioners, we ask you properly secure those air conditioners so they cannot be easily pushed into your homes. Register your electronics, especially bikes. We see that a lot of bicycles are stolen. Most bicycles are very high end. Register those bikes so we have that information. We have your serial number, et cetera, and so forth. Again, adequate lighting in your home. Whenever we go to a house break, people always ask us, what can I do to make my home a more difficult target? Lighting, lighting, lighting. Motion lights on the side of houses, places that don't have lighting, places that are hidden from public view. Ring cameras. Ring cameras are a huge success for us. Whenever we have an incident in the neighborhood or a house break, we canvass the neighborhood, we look for ring cameras, we speak to the neighbors, and we ask if they would provide us video, which they often do. Ring cameras are a very low cost, high benefit device that you can have in your home to prevent home burglaries and package thefts. Next slide, please. Every meeting we have, every single season, the spring, the fall, everyone asks about traffic enforcement. What is the Somerville Police doing about traffic enforcement? Well, besides focusing our attention on high traffic, high volume, high accident intersections, we also apply for traffic grants. This year's municipal road safety grant ran from April to September 15th. Areas of enforcement were distracted driving, click it or ticket. What is that? It's your seatbelt. Click your seatbelt or get a ticket. Speed enforcement, impaired driving, which is people using their cell phones, talking on their cell phones, and actually even texting when they're driving. And also pedestrian and bicycle safety. Within that grant, our officers wrote over almost 1,700 citations, 1,681 citations in total. 1,340 were for motorized vehicles, 341 for cyclists. Of all of those citations, only 3 involved money fines. The remaining citations were all warnings. It is the imperative of the Somerville Police Department or the policy of Somerville Police Department that our traffic enforcement is not punitive, it's educational. And if we can educate an operator of a motor vehicle with a citation instead of being punitive with a monetary violation, we do that. Within that municipal road safety grant, we were also able to purchase 3 additional speed signs that are placed in high rate of infractions. Those are those signs, when you drive by, it flashes your speed and tells you to slow down, or sometimes gives you a thumbs up. Next slide, please. Again, every season we provide this list of services we provide at the Somerville Police Department. As you can see, the top is substance misuse, mental health is the next topic, domestic violence, sexual assault, and additional information at the bottom. For those of you who want these numbers who can't access them via these slides, go on the Somerville Police webpage, and they are there as well. Next slide, please. Again, contacting the SPD. How do you contact the Somerville Police for non-emergency, non-911 calls? I always find it hard to believe people do not realize we do have the non-emergency line. And it's very, very simple. It hasn't changed in over 50 years. 617-625-1212. That rings directly to our dispatch call center. It does not go to a 911 operator. It goes to one of the other operators within the call center who will take that non-emergency phone call. If you have questions or concerns, you can see our email address there. It's police@police.somerville.ma.us, and our webpage is there as well. Within our webpage, we have an anonymous tip line that you can also send anonymous tips. But please, if you use the anonymous tip line, please know this is not monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next slide.
Thank you, Captain. Next, we have an update from our Director of Health and Human Services, Karen Carroll, and then Captain Donovan will speak again. It's kind of a 2-part presentation on addressing the needs of persons experiencing homelessness.
Thank you, Victoria. Hi, my name is Karen Carroll. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Somerville. And tonight I'm going to give a brief overview of some of the work that's happening in our department and others around the city to address the needs of persons experiencing homelessness. So next slide. Homelessness is a very complex issue, as I'm sure all of you know. HHS is one of many departments and agencies outside the city that do work on this and are partnering and working daily to support these members of our community. So I just want to be clear that, I am not the only person, and I'll try to recognize some of the other players in this space, but we work together as a team. So because it's such a complex issue, we use a public health framework to try to begin to break down the issue and have a starting point and a way to continually evaluate the work we're doing and to see if we're meeting the needs. So the first part of any public health framework is the assessment phase, where we try to learn more about, we monitor the health, we look at the data, we diagnose and investigate. So in the assessment phase, next slide, we work on a number of different we use a number of different data sources. So we use local data, which is a point in time data or a census that's done here in the city every year in January. Last January, we had 15 people counted in January that were living on the street. And then we had a number of others that were living in shelters, almost 100 individuals that would be classified by our definition as homeless in Somerville. We think that's probably an underrepresentation, but it's a good starting point that allows us to compare over time. We look at statewide data and we look at national trends. So we look at things like domestic violence, or DV, is becoming a leading factor in homelessness in the last couple of years. The other national trend is around youth homelessness. So these are specific populations, and the issues are slightly different, and the solutions to support these members of the community are different as well. So also just the health outcomes for persons experiencing homelessness, that nearly half of the persons experiencing homelessness in the US have a severe mental health issue or a chronic substance misuse issue. And chronically homeless people have some of the poorest health outcomes overall. Thank you. Next slide. So the next phase in the public health framework is policy and planning. We do a lot of this in HHS with our department, other departments in the city, as well as other agencies. And right now we focus on basic human and safety needs. So we're looking at things like an overnight warming center, and emergency supplies for extreme heat and cold. In the top picture there, you can see some backpacks that our division has created to hand out. And they have a lot of emergency supplies for both staying cool in the summer as well as staying warm in the winter. And we look at food access. We're also partnering with our colleagues at the Somerville Homeless Coalition to explore using city-supported ARPA funds for a shower van that would further provide, basic human and sanitation needs for this population. Next slide. And in the policy planning phase of the framework, we aim to do two things: increase the outreach of the services throughout the city. And that's, again, partnering with people like the Somerville Homeless Coalition, Conexión, other outreach partners, substance use support through CORE, Fenway Mobile Services, and looking at a variety of policies, as well as a prevention-focused community health worker. And then increasing the housing options for the future. So I want to again highlight the prevention work that our Office of Housing Stability does every single day. And that's obviously the best possible outcome is to prevent people from losing their home and to find stable housing. So that prevention work is so critical and is being done every single day. The city has recently met with some of our partner agencies and the state to figure out if there are other resources that we could be tapping into at the state level. And again, the various city departments that are involved in these complex and long-term planning, and we meet regularly to try to enhance our communication, to find gaps that need to be addressed. Sometimes people that are out in the parks and will know about issues and share them with us, and we kind of try to work together as well as with our partner agencies to address the complex needs. In this picture here, you can see some pictures, some photos from the Overnight Warming Center last year, and that was a policy initiative that was again funded by the city to ensure that on the coldest nights of winter, people had somewhere to go. Next slide and final slide is the final phase is our implement and evaluation part of the framework. We want to ensure that we have a trauma-informed and empathetic workforce. We want to ensure that referrals to services are made and identify barriers to the gaps to the services. And in particular, we're looking at ensuring sustainability of funding. So this photo here is the mayor leaning against the wall, talking with some folks at the engagement center in Davis Square recently. They are both collecting data for us, for persons experiencing homelessness, lived experience, telling us firsthand what they need, what would be helpful. They're helping us track the data and identify gaps. And they talked with the mayor and were able to tell the mayor and some of the staff in the city what their needs were. So again, this is an important ARPA-funded initiative with our partner agencies that we need to find a way to sustain. So we'll be working closely with them over the next year to look at sustainability of these programs. That's a very quick, fast overview, but thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take questions at the end or via email. People can reach out.
Thank you, Karen. And then we'll go right back to Captain Donovan for the second part of this presentation.
Thank you, Karen. And as you can imagine, the Somerville Police work with our partners in HHS as well as our own core unit to assist our unhoused population. Specifically, as an example, is the unhoused population we are currently dealing with in Lower Broadway. Next slide, please. What are the interventions that the members of the Somerville Police do to assist the neighbors, help with the quality of living in certain areas, but also respect and help our unhoused population? Currently, specifically with Lower Broadway, we have a standing director patrol around Lower Broadway. A director patrol is what? It's where our officers specifically spend a certain amount of time in a certain area with a certain purpose. What is that purpose? In this case, it's to interact with our unhoused population, ask them what their needs are, see if we can address some of their needs, and ensure that they are respecting the surrounding area, respecting the neighbors, and abide by a certain level of accountability. Our officers are also instructed to document these interactions. The purpose of this documentation is for non-criminal intervention. This intervention often deals with the court system in a non-criminal manner, more as opposed to getting them help, bringing them before the court, and asking that they be see a court clinician for their specific issues that they're addressing, usually substance-based. Again, to go through this process, we need documentation, and again, it's non-criminal intervention to get help for these individuals. One of the other things we did with Lower Broadway in particular is we met with all the owners of liquor stores on Lower Broadway and advised them of their legal responsibilities under the law, as well as under some of the municipal ordinances and their licensing. Specifically, not serving or selling alcohol to people visibly intoxicated and obviously underage. The last thing we did is the FPD recently created the Community Affairs Unit. This unit consists of one sergeant, a supervisor, 2 officers, both of whom work with our community partners, and the core team, our community outreach, help and recovery team. This team works out of the police department. They include clinicians and recovery coaches that look through all the Somerville police cases. Next slide, please. What are the services the core provides? Well, the core unit, like I said, reviews all SPD reports for opportunities to intervene in areas of mental health and substance abuse. They not only look at all the reports, but our officers within our reporting system can flag certain calls that they think the core unit could use help with. Officers often connect with these individuals with our core staff. So officers know what core individuals are working. They reach out to the core staff and explain to them the situation that they face that day. And often they can connect the people they deal with on the streets directly with our core staff. Our core unit also partners with the Office of Housing Stability to access housing as well. They also offer walk-in assistance, the core unit. They operate out of the first floor of the police department. They offer walk-in assistance for detox and work towards sober living. Next slide. I believe this is for the DPW.
Oh, we can go ahead one more slide. Thank you, Captain. For our final presentation tonight, we have our Department of Public Works Commissioner, Jill Lathan, to talk about Portland Luz.
Well, good evening, and what a pleasure to be here tonight to talk with you guys about Portland Luz and this wonderful, great city of Somerville. I'm Jill Lathan. Have the honor of being the Commissioner of DPW, Department of Public Works. So what are Portland Luz? Portland Luz are freestanding, fully functional, you can go to the next slide, please, fully functional public restrooms that have a flushable toilet and running water for hand washing stations outside. Next slide. These units are open 24/7. They're ADA accessible. They have stainless steel. They're ventilated. Again, hand washing stations and fully functioning to flush the toilet. So these kind of came out of a universal need for folks in our community. So we're putting 3 of these units in our business unit. You can go through the next slide. In our business districts. So we have in East Somerville. We have also in Davis Square and Union Square. So those are the 3 that they're going to be placed. Folks really, everyone at some point in time, as we love to enjoy Somerville and everyone wants to be in Somerville, enjoy this phenomenal, great city. And there are times you're going to have to go to the bathroom. And so these units are going to help with that for everyone, families, children, people that are visiting your city, business shoppers and things like that throughout the city. People have asked for this. Our city councilmen, like I said, families have asked for this, and we responded, and the mayor has graciously agreed and has supported this initiative 100%. Next slide. So again, this is for everyone. General population, special needs, unhoused, tourists, elderly, people with medical condition, cyclists, like I said, business people, tourists. It's for everyone. So it's a great opportunity. We're looking forward to having these. Next slide. We're looking for, these have to be actually handmade and then delivered to us. So they will be, the contracts in place for these. They will be cleaned on a daily basis. So there will be a contractor that will be contracted to clean these units. We hope to get these by spring 2024 and hopefully have them installed early summer. So luckily the installation goes well and we can get these up and running for a wonderful hot summer season that we're hoping for in FY24. And look forward to your questions at the end.
Thank you, Jill. So that is it for our main presentations tonight. So I'm going to ask that all presenters turn on their cameras for the Q&A piece. In addition to presenters tonight, we do have staff representatives from the Council on Aging, our engineering division, our Office of Sustainability and Environment, Economic Development, Constituent Services, Public Space and Urban Forestry, and our Planning and Zoning division or department. So if you want to use the raise your hand function, if you're looking to ask a question, when I call on your name, we will prompt you to unmute and you can ask your question. So it looks like we will start with Carol R.
Hello?
Hi, Carol.
Yeah, I think I raised my hand for something else, but I did have two questions.
Sure.
One is the participatory budgeting. Do we know when that's going to be implemented? And if there's going to be any money left over to do smart boxes?
Hi, Megan here. Happy to answer that one. Yes, we are in the planning stage now with our departments that are connected to the winning projects. So once we have a better idea of when they'll be up, and as we move through to procuring and installing those projects, we will put updates on the webpage. We'd love to have things out next summer during construction season. And your other question was, I am forgetting, so you may need to remind me.
Yeah, we're just gonna ask
If there was any money left over for smart boxes.
Yes, we're sticking with the amount proposed, which was 250,000. We may see if a portion of that could be used for additional smart boxes, and we're coordinating with Public Works and Inspectional Services.
Thank you, Megan. Next we have Barbara's iPhone.
Hello. I have a question about the traffic calming speed bumps, which I am very in favor of. I think it's not news to anyone that there's been a lot of talk about how when they're installed, the bumps are put in and then it might take a few weeks before they get painted. And people have, kind of asked if they can be more in sync, the implementation of both parts of that at the same time. And I'm wondering if there's any attempt to do that. And also if there is any possibility of painting the bumps in a more eye-catching way. I find that like if there's a bump near a crosswalk, my eye is more drawn to the crosswalk and I keep thinking that's where the bump is. And then I might hit the bump before noticing it.
Hi, Barbara. This is Brad from the Mobility Division. Thanks for your comments and questions. The issue that you are describing in terms of sequencing for how we construct our traffic calming and make sure that there's appropriate pavement markings and signage is something that the city has worked on for the last couple of years. And I want to be humble about this and acknowledge that a couple of years ago, we really needed to do better in terms of lining up that sequence between the asphalt contractor, a pavement markings subcontractor, and a signage crew. And I'm really pleased to report that this year in 2023, we had a much tighter sequence of all of those activities, but it's something that our staff are well aware of. There are several departments that are working on this and really trying to make sure that we've got a good, tight sequence between all those steps of construction. So your point's well taken, and please continue to advocate and please continue to hold us accountable for more process improvements. You also asked, Barbara, about specifications for the striping. Although those photos that I showed a few minutes ago did not include our new standards, I'm happy to report that we're using enhanced markings, and that if you move around the city today, you can probably see in your mind's eye two major pavement markings elements that signify a speed hump. One is a big white arrow that we call a chevron. It's installed using high reflectivity, high durability thermoplastic, so it will not fade quickly, and it's visible in low light conditions and wet weather. The second piece that we have customized based on feedback like yours are the yellow zebra stripes that run across the speed humps as well. So we feel that that's been a good process improvement for all users. So thanks again for your comments and for your questions. And if anybody would like to learn more, please do email transportation@somervillema.gov.
Thanks, Brad. Next we have Crystal.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
We can.
I can't figure out how to turn on my camera on this one. This is Crystal Huff. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm going to try to speak slowly in terms of interpretation. I know that we all hate comments that are not a question, but I have one that I hope highlights an issue that we probably all want a more strategic solution for. This summer, my neighborhood did a tour of the area with Colin Ziegler to address rat problems. And we started to get quotes for the work that he recommended in order to address the issues that he saw in our houses, on people's properties, on private property issues. My neighbor got a quote for over $10,000 to do what he had recommended be done in her yard, at which point she abandoned the project entirely because the rats do not bother her enough to break her bank. So I'm wondering if there is any city program or a plan for doing that work on private property in order to have fewer rat runs through the neighborhood, in the local apartment dumpsters where the apartment owner does not respond at all. I have the work that Colin suggested by personally digging trenches and buying materials myself. And I have provided some of those materials to my neighbors, but I am pulling out my hair because that is not a sustainable solution. I cannot get my entire neighborhood on board for doing work that involves them paying $10,000 a piece. So the only neighbor I have who's willing to spend money on solutions and do something about this has been buying rat poison, which, as we all know, means the rat predators might ingest that poison further up the food chain. I am looking for more sustainable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Colin, did you have a follow-up comment or?
Yeah, just quickly, Crystal, could your neighbor follow up with me? You can do that through email. That seems a little exorbitant. And I think we're talking about exclusion work. As for the particular exclusion work, I don't know. That has something to do with excavation and replacement with pea stone that could be expensive. But other stuff like hardware cloth over latticing and removal of some soft soils shouldn't be $10,000, but I'd be happy to discuss further and meet with that neighbor.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, Crystal, any information you'd like to get to Colin, please use the email on the screen, cm@somervillema.gov, and we'll make sure that gets to him. Thank you. Next, we have Sandra M.
Hello. Well, I have two questions now. So first question has to do with the public toilets. I think that's a great idea, but I was wondering what safety measures are in place for those. In places where I've seen them, I know of one place where somebody passed away in the toilet and who knows how long they were there. So I was wondering if there's some sort of emergency button or help button, or some sort of monitoring of somebody going in and monitoring how long they're in there to make sure they're okay. That's one question. My second question came up when I was listening to, I think her name is Crystal, speaking on the rat control problem. And I was wondering, is there an easy way to make these forms, I guess, less complicated? Because I was looking at a form and it required everybody to sign. And if you have a multifamily unit, then it's hard to catch people. And rat problem, it doesn't necessarily affect one home, it affects a whole neighborhood. So I'm wondering if there's a way to make this more proactive rather than waiting for people to reach out, or coming out of pocket for things that perhaps they're not aware that the city can help with. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. We can start with the Portland Lou question.
Hi, yeah, Commissioner Lathan. That's a great question. I think these will be cleaned at least 3 times daily. These units, we'll have to kind of work with the team to see about what kind of processes can be put in place as far as, monitoring, or if they're, of course, if they're going to stay occupied, if someone's in there. So, but that's something we're going to kind of continue to kind of tease out. I do hear your concern about folks if they're in those units, either incapacitated or need assistance or doing behavior that may be concerning inside those units. I know that we've worked with our colleagues in Cambridge who have several of these units, and they have, like I said, the daily increase in cleaning has helped with that somewhat, but that's something we have to continue to kind of look out for and kind of see what we can do.
Thanks, Jill. And Colin, if you wanted to follow up on the second question.
Of course. And I initially wanted to start with the reasoning as to why everyone needs to sign that form. When the city comes out and does the residential rodent assistance control program, we are often utilizing bait and including track powder. So it takes consent from everyone living on the property, one, to know that we're using those poisons and for everyone to be aware of them. And second, that city staff and a contractor will be able to enter your property. I do know it's cumbersome. We are currently working on an online module to help improve that, and we're hoping to roll that out in the next iteration of the residential program. So just keep updated, and we'll be presenting our upcoming plan for 2024 at the Special Issues Committee on Rodents. So looking forward to that.
Thank you both. Next up, we have Linda Wills. Okay, we can come back to Linda. Next, we have Jen Harrington.
Hi, my name is Jen Harrington. I'm in Ward 3. I've been reading about the Somerville Municipal Employees Association, which have been without a renewed contract or a raise since July 2022. I was wondering if Somerville had considered a mediator in negotiations. And then also, as a follow-up to this, I have heard that there are vacancies in every department because the city is not providing a living and competitive wage to its own employees, and that work is being outsourced. And I was wondering what the cost is to the city to pay for contract work.
Thank you, Jen, for the question. We are in negotiations with the the Somerville Municipal Employees Association. There are ground rules while we're in negotiation that we can't talk about the negotiation details in public, and that is the rules that the unions have established with the city. So I am happy to talk to our legal counsel and see if there's anything that we can add to your question. What I would ask is if you could email us at cm@somervillema.gov and share your email address if you would like, so we can, or telephone number, how we can get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll try Linda again. Okay, we're going to keep going. Next up, we have John.
Hi, so I had two questions. So my first question is with all the added bus lanes in the city, is there any data being tracked on how much more pollution that is causing with cutting out lanes on the streets and then it causing additional traffic with more cars idling? I've noticed that with McGrath Highway, now there's a lot more cars idling on Cross Street trying to cut through that way. So I'm wondering if the city's doing any additional data tracking with that. And also my second question was in regards to the traffic circles on Cross Street. So I'm just wondering if there's any data being tracked with that as well on the accidents that's causing. I've noticed that there's been a lot of car debris around those traffic circles, and also how it is not as safe when you're crossing the street at those intersections, because cars to get around those traffic circles have to actually go into the crosswalk where pedestrians are crossing.
Hi, John. This is Brad from the Mobility Division. Thanks for your two questions. I'll try to answer both of them quickly, and then happy to follow up if you'd like to reach out directly. You first asked about bus lanes in the city and about how the city evaluates their effectiveness and whether there are any unintended consequences about congestion, about pollution, and those sorts of things. I want to assure you that the city does do ongoing monitoring for all of these types of projects. We track run times and travel times for buses, as well as for the general driving public, to see how long it takes folks to travel from one point to the other before and after these projects. Another thing that we do with researchers from Tufts University is we actually collect air pollution data in a number of streets around Somerville. We've done this around I-93, around Mystic Avenue, Broadway, and Winter Hill. and McGrath Highway in the Union Square, Prospect Hill, and Brick Bottom neighborhoods. So this is actually really, really cool science to try to make sure that we understand, are we improving public quality of life and public health? So far, the answers have been yes, John. So far, the data show us that air pollution is really a function of vehicle miles traveled, not about starts and stops, about somebody idling at a stoplight or a stop sign. It's really about the tens of thousands of cars that are coming through on I-93, for example. So again, our overall goal is to reduce the number of cut-through trips and keep people out of Somerville. If they're not our residents, if they're not our business owners, if they're not our workers or our shoppers. But I want to assure you that we are collecting data on all of those issues. The second thing you asked about is about a new traffic calming treatment that the city has been using called a neighborhood traffic circle. I want folks to know that this is a very standard traffic calming treatment that is used in all parts of the country. Somerville did not invent this. We have prioritized it in the East Somerville neighborhood based on public feedback, and we've communicated all of those designs to our residents and stakeholders in the neighborhood while we were developing the designs. The goal of the neighborhood traffic circles is to reduce speeds at these intersections and to improve compliance. We all know that too many people roll or even blow stop signs, and next to a school at a crosswalk, the consequences of that behavior are unacceptable. We take detailed measurements to design and build the neighborhood traffic circles. We run tests with large vehicles, including specialty vehicles like trash trucks and fire apparatus. And if something has been built incorrectly and it doesn't work for our first responders, we actually go back and modify the traffic circle. And you can see evidence of that at the corner of Pearl and Glen. So, John, I'm happy to follow up with you or any other folks on this call on those details, but I hope that that's a helpful initial answer to your two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next we have David.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I don't claim to speak for anybody in government, so consider this my opinion, but I can't help myself. But the purpose of bus lanes, et cetera, is to encourage mode shift, which is much better for the environment. And on that note, I would like to say, I think that we could really use bus lanes on Highland Avenue specifically whenever the redesign eventually happens, hopefully sooner than later, because I take the 88 and the 90 just about every day, and I cannot tell you how much better it would be if there were dedicated bus lanes. Okay, but my real question is for the police chief. I don't remember the numbers. He quoted a couple of numbers about citations and warnings given to motor vehicles and bicycles. I have a comment about that, but could I first get those numbers again?
Hold on one second. Let me look at the slides on my phone, make it easier.
Cool, thank you. I don't want
No
to
worries.
quote incorrect numbers.
No, no worries.
Grace, if you wouldn't mind going back to the.
No, I have it
Please,
right
Bob.
here.
Oh.
We can bring it up too, Victoria. That's fine. There was just the grant. There wasn't all citations written by the police department. Just with that municipal safety road grant, there were 1,681 citations were issued in total. 1,340 were for motorists and 341 for cyclists.
Okay, so on that grant, 340%. So that's about not quite 20%. It's something like 15% for cyclists.
Yes.
Not great at mental math. Okay, I would hazard a guess to say that is an overrepresentation of citations for cyclists, because I don't think we're at 15% trips taken by bicycle. I believe that's the number that's targeted for 2050. So if we're there already, that would be amazing, but I doubt we are. So that to me says we are policing cyclists probably more than we need to. And look, I understand cyclists violating traffic laws endangers people, but ask me if I would rather be hit by a speeding cyclist or a speeding car. Like, it's not comparable, right? And I think there's a lot of, it's kind of a hot button issue, right? Like when we talk about the Idaho stop and whatever, people get very up in arms about cyclists, but bicycles are not cars. They just aren't. And they don't pose the same threat to people that cars do. They don't pose the same threat to the environment. So I really think we should be doing everything we can to encourage more people to cycle. And on the topic of citations, I've said this before, and I just can't help saying it again. I understand the official position of the Somerville Police is that the traffic enforcement policy is not meant to be punitive. I cannot more strongly disagree with this interpretation, because we see it all the time, right? Like, and you've said that you get a lot of people calling in and talking about it, and I will be one of those people again. The level of disregard for traffic safety by people driving cars in Somerville is just absurd, and is very scary for someone who walks and cycles just about everywhere in the city. And I would contend that if people were given large fines, not only would they be less likely to keep doing it, but it would also help the city budget. Hey, why not? Why not kill two birds with one stone, right? So again, take this as a comment. I would very much appreciate a shift in that policy for whoever has the ability to make that shift. Thank you very much.
David, thank you for your question. You're not alone. I will say that municipal road safety grant gave us certain parameters we had to work within. And that is not, that 1,681 citations, all the citations written by the Somerville Police. That is just within that grant. I would venture to guess the amount of citations written by the Somerville Police might be 3 or 4 times that amount, but not with the cyclists. We do not prioritize cyclists over motor vehicles. So if you look at I realize that percentage you're saying is 15. My math's probably not even as good as yours, but you may be correct there. But when you add in the citations written by the Somerville Police as a whole, that percentage goes down significantly into the single digits, if not close to 3 or 4% maybe. And again, that municipal road safety grant, we had to operate within their parameters. That being said, I am working with other commissions. I don't have final say on this, but I do have input. And we are working with other commissions, bicycling, mobility commission, people in Brad's office of mobility, and we may be tweaking that municipal road safety grant next year to the most that we can. We do have to operate certain parameters, but that your comments noted.
Thank you, Captain. Next we have Crystal.
Okay, sorry, coming back again. It occurred to me, I was wondering, in terms of the crime statistics in the city, I'm really interested in what statistics the city has about wage theft and landlord crimes against tenants, or things that municipally we call crime but don't treat as crime. I was wondering if anyone had statistics about that could be shared or could be followed up with. Thanks.
I can answer as far as the police part of that question is. If there's someone in housing that has a better answer, they can chime in. As far as the police go, we do not track wage theft or housing. I'm not really making the connection with housing, but if you want to reach out to us via the email address, we can connect better, and I can get you any data the police may have that tracks that, or may possibly direct you to our housing unit within the city, and maybe they can assist you with that better. I'm sorry if that doesn't answer your question.
If I could just chime in on the wage theft piece. I'm not fluent in this. Happy to get you the information if we have it locally. I know that much of that is managed through the state level and the attorney generals. So I'm not quite sure on the tracking, but Crystal, if you send us an email with the exact question, we can see what we can get you or direct you certainly to the people who might have that data. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I know Rachel Nadkarni. Did you have anything to add, Rachel?
Meredith said what I was going to say. This is a topic that has come, wage theft particularly is a topic that has come up through economic development, the Office of Racial and Social Justice and others, and we are actively trying to figure out what role the municipal government can play vis-a-vis what roles already are filled by our state partners.
Thanks, Rachel. Next we have John.
So I just had a question on Highland Ave. Are there any plans on repaving that street in the near future? Because right now it's pretty bad with all the potholes and everything on there, and is actually pretty dangerous for both bicyclists and motorists.
John, this is Brad. Thanks for the question. Yes, the city is planning on doing some temporary paving along Highland Avenue. The mayor requested, as part of our city budget last year, and our city council approved a temporary paving strategy. That strategy is currently scheduled for the first half of 2024. So folks should picture kind of May, June, the first half of the construction season. And I do want to set fair expectations that it will be a partial pavement strategy. It will not necessarily be curb to curb, and it will not necessarily be all the way from McGrath to Davis Square. But your point is well noted. The pavement has gotten really, really bad. And even though there is still utility work to come in the coming years, a Band-Aid approach is something that the mayor, the city council, and the staff are moving forward on. I hope that's a helpful answer.
Thank you. Next we have Tom Clark.
Hello, can you hear me? This
Yes.
is Mary Ellen,
Yes.
not Tom. Sorry about that. My question has to do with the proportion of residents who use cars versus public transportation versus biking. Do you have statistics on that?
Hi, Mary Ellen, this is Brad. Yes, we do have statistics on how our residents get around. There are a whole bunch of caveats with the data. One source that we use is from the US Census. And so that asks a sample of people certain questions about their travel behavior, but we don't rely on that one alone. We go out and we count people walking, people biking, people riding the bus and the train, people driving. We also do a lot of user surveys to try to just get a little bit more local detail than the federal census data can provide. And I'm happy to answer any other questions or provide links to data if you want to email transportation@somervillema.gov.
Thanks, Brad. Next we have David.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. I had another question about Highland Avenue. I'm happy to hear there will be some temporary paving measures in place because, as the previous commenter said, it is exceptionally difficult to either drive or cycle on Highland, so much so that I just avoid it altogether because it's basically unpaved at this point. It's so bad. So about that though, the Highland redesign was fairly recently pushed back to I think like multiple years with an S from now to start the design process, which at a previous meeting there was a lot of discussion about the ongoing work and how much longer it's going to take and all that sort of thing. So I understand, right? Like there's a lot more work to be done, and that it is unfortunate but understandable why the actual implementation of a redesign has been delayed and pushed back. But I guess my somewhat snarky question would be, does the presence of that work preclude beginning the design process? Because I don't think it does. And again, you can just take that as a comment if you want, but I think I don't think I'm alone in saying I would appreciate a design process starting faster it doesn't make sense to me why we can't at least have those conversations so that when the work is done, we can just begin instead of continuing to talk about it. Thanks.
Hi, David, this is Brad. I know you framed your comment as a comment and not a question, but this is something that we hear from a lot of residents, from the mayor herself, from our city council. And so I just wanted to validate what you are saying. We are currently working on a strategy for the civil and utility engineering, as well as the streetscape design of the future. And we should have more information about the options and the overall schedule in the new year.
Thanks, Brad. I'm not seeing, oh, we do have a hand. John?
So one last question related to the rats in Somerville. Is there any city programs available for professional pest controls to come in and kind of go through residential yards to put out traps or put in some kind of measures to deter rodents? Because right now the rat problem is really bad in my area and it's horrible. I can't even let my dog outside by himself because he's been bitten by rats multiple times. So I'm just wondering if there's some kind of program the city offers to have a professional come in and kind of prevent rats from coming through the backyard.
Thank you for the question, John. There is a program that a pest professional and a city inspector will come out to your property to do an inspection and determine where rodents are coming from. There is currently no exclusion aspect included with that, other than collapsing burrows that might be present. You can sign up through that by calling 311. It's 3 weeks of free service, and you're able to sign back up when your 3 weeks is up. But we're currently reworking that, and stay tuned for more updates.
Thanks, Colin. Mary Ellen Clark, or Tom Clark.
Thank you very much. I wasn't specific enough in my question, which is, what is the approximate distribution of bikers versus cars, people using cars? And I realize that it's going to add up to more than 100 because people use multiple modes. But Brad, just wondering if you could, I guess what I'm curious about is how many people are using buses versus bikes. That's more specifically what my question is.
Mary Ellen, thanks for following up. Let me provide just a couple of quick statistics, and then again, I'd love to point you and other folks to some of the online resources so we can have a more detailed conversation. The latest US Census data reports that approximately 30% of Somerville residents choose mass transit, meaning train or bus, for their commute trips. The same US Census data suggests that about 10% of Somerville residents use walking to their place of work, and about 8%, if I remember correctly, use biking, which means that it's like 50 or 52% report driving for their primary commute trip. So that is a broad brush again, and it's going to be a little different for every neighborhood, but at the top level, think about it like 50% driving, 50% non-driving. And I do want to note that that is a stunningly progressive and low carbon data set compared to all of our national peers. Only Cambridge and New York City are fundamentally higher. So Somerville is very much a community that is transit, walking, and biking oriented. But as I mentioned earlier, there are big grains of salt with that data. And so we measure things intersection by intersection. We ask employers and employees. We ask parents in the public school district how they prefer to travel. So again, I'd love to follow up on this conversation with you.
Thanks, Brad. I did just want to give a final opportunity for those tuning in to use the raise hand function to ask a question. I'll give you a moment to do that. Otherwise, we will close the meeting. Any final questions? We have Heather Couture.
Hi, I just had a quick question. During the pandemic, I believe hazardous waste was able to be picked up a couple of times a year instead of being dropped off. And I just looked at my calendar and saw the last drop off day is for this Saturday, and I'm going to try to make it. But I'm noticing since I don't have a car and do public transport, it's like a bit of a project. And I guess I just wanted to say that service was so great and helpful for me. And if it's possible to have kind of a hybrid, a pickup maybe some of the year in addition to the drop off, that would be so amazing. And that was it.
Hi, Heather. It's Commissioner Lathan. Thank you for that. If you could also send that into that email, and I can kind of send you a response and kind of see what our options are. Our company's kind of come to the yard to pick up those disposal things. But I definitely can give that some more thought.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, please utilize the cm@somervillema.gov email, and I'll get that information to Jill. I'll do a final call for questions. Okay, with that, we will close tonight's meeting. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, staff, for coming out with us this season. Thank you, interpreters, for being here with us tonight. Again, if you have any follow-up questions, comments, feedback, please reach out at cm@somervillema.gov. The recording of tonight's meeting, as well as the ward meetings that happened earlier this month, will be online in the coming days. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.